Joining us now to continue that conversation is attorney Rachel Fiset. Rachel, thank you for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, we talked about this yesterday, a huge development now with them being resentenced. Can you explain California's law about how they can now be eligible for parole, because they still really have a long road ahead to possibly being released?
That's right. So the Bureau of Prisons and the Parole Board will decide their eligibility for parole. And I do think that's going to happen right away. This is not going to be a secret that they are requesting parole. This really was. The parole board was very involved in this process already throughout all the documents that they were preparing for the governor for his possible grant of clemency. So there is that parole hearing for that possible grant of clemency on June 13th. And I think there is some possibility that they will wrap up their request for parole under this resentencing at that time. I believe there will likely need to be some legal maneuvers for them to do that, but they will request the parole board to hear this case for parole very quickly so that it can then get to the governor's desk for approval and they can be released.
So if the parole board signs off on the resentencing, then does it head to Governor Newsom immediately? If the governor rejects it, can they do this whole process over again?
Once they're eligible for parole again, if their parole is rejected by the governor, they can do this process again, but that process will not be immediate. They then have to come back up for eligibility and meet those requirements under the Bureau of Prisons and the Parole Board. So really, this time around is essential for them, but it isn't their last shot by any means.
All right, let's switch gears now and get to Sean Diddy Combs' trial. We have so much legal news to follow. Of course, Cassie testified yesterday for hours on the stand with lots of graphic testimony. She's returning to the stand this morning. What do we expect from her today?
I think we expect quite a bit more of the graphic testimony of the years of abuse. And really, she's going to talk about that video that we have all now seen of her being beaten in the hallway or allegedly beaten in the hallway. And this is just leading up to more of the coercion and the years of abuse that she endured and the acts that were happening as it related to what they're alleging is sex trafficking.
Is the defense going to have to be very careful here? She's 8.5 months pregnant. I had read that they were trying to seat all witnesses before the jury came into the room, in some ways to potentially conceal her pregnancy. The judge has rejected that, so of course everyone saw her yesterday. What does the defense need to do here to make sure they get their point across without becoming maybe too belligerent with her?
That's right. They have a 8.5-month pregnant woman who is talking about abuse. She's crying on the stand. This is obviously incredibly painful for her, and they will have to tread somewhat lightly because really their strategy is to make it look like she was consenting to all of the acts and that she was extorting him for money by filing a civil case in the first place because these acts were consensual. So they are going to have to really attack her after she has given all of her testimony that has been very painful for her. It's been emotional and it has been graphic, talking about being drugged for over 36 hours straight so that she can continue to engage in what they're calling a freak off, which is really somewhat public sex. It is incredibly graphic testimony where she is looking really upset and in a fragile state. So the defense has to tread lightly. It'll be interesting to see how they do it.
It definitely will be, because each new detail is more and more shocking.
Yes, it is.
Rachel, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.